With my knowledge, I will not make
Impacting the people, the children that you have.
Yes. I'm very careful what I say.
Knowing that your children will learn from you. Even
Yes.
though you're not intentional.
Yes, we should talk about intentional fathering.
Welcome again to Relating Relationships, where we are addicted to good conversations. Guys, welcome. We are here again, another day, another episode, another conversation that I'm having with a very close and dear friend of mine. This man, I've known him for, I think over 20 years. I think over 20 years. We were both not married when we met, and now we are both married. We've got children, and we've got wives and family, and we are fathers. I almost said mothers, but yeah, we are fathers. And I just want to welcome my very close friend, Oliva Velbroek. So welcome, my brother.
No, thank you very much, Des. Really appreciate this opportunity to be here so that we can have this conversation.
And actually this has been going on, Relating Relationship has been an idea that has been in existence for a very long time. You've been there from the beginning of it, where we started, and we didn't get any far and stuff. And so my story, our story with Terry, my wife, and now we're doing it, man. We're doing it, and you are part of it, and I think that's what makes me happy.
Awesome.
Right? And the idea here is we want to talk about the relating part of relationships,
yes.
Any kind of a relationship. So, but how are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm good. We're good. For the sake of those who don't know, I'm married with 3 children. My eldest being the daughter, and I have twins. I've been blessed with twins, and the boy and a girl. So my eldest is 12, and my twins are 10. So yeah, and we in a place called Model East in Springs area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you are a pastor.
I am a pastor.
For which church?
For New Beginning Community Chuch, and we are based in Springs at the moment. We started here in Kempton Park, but now we moved to Springs, and then eventually the church started that side.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so I'm sitting with the pastor, guys. I'm sitting with the pastor here. You almost made me laugh because you said, I'm married with 3 children.
Oh.
So, tell us a bit about your wife.
What do you want to know about my wife? Beautiful.
Who is she?
Loving. Oh, her name is Bono.
Okay.
Yeah, she's from Northwest Province. I'm from Northwest Province myself.
Okay.
So we're both from the same area, you may say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the funny thing is, I only actually got to know her here in Kempton Park.
Oh, so you guys, both of you, you guys both come from Northwest, and you met in Gauteng.
In Gauteng, yes.
Yeah. And I think it's always a beautiful story when you hear people how they met.
Yes.
Couples how they met. So you said your oldest child
12.
is 12.
12, yeah.
So you've been a father for 12 years.
Yeah.
Now I'm just gonna ask you, how has it been fathering, especially in this generation that we are in?
It's been lovely, but it's also been challenging.
Okay.
Lovely in the sense that looking at these people who depend on you, these people who don't know anything except for what you're teaching them.
Sure.
One of the things that I've also seen with my kids, and I wonder how I missed it with me, my upbringing,
Okay.
is that we sort of get the sense of who we are from our parents as well. And I see how important that is. That I constantly allow my kids to know who they are. Because unless I do that, there is someone out there who's going to tell them who they are not. And unfortunately, they might be deceived and start living that out. Yeah. So it is interesting in that sense. It's not so much of a good thing, particularly for, I don't want to generalize, but I want to say with black kids and us in particular.
Okay.
We grew up in families where even if you had both parents, chances are you would have your father not being in the house because they had to be somewhere else working. So, and that was a case in my situation.
Okay.
Because even though my father was there, he wasn't physically there. He had to be somewhere all the time. He had to go work in Northern Cape, he had to go work in Eastern Cape, so he was constantly elsewhere working. And because of that, now you end up with a situation where you don't really know how to father, because you haven't been fathered.
Sure.
You had a father,
Sure.
but you were not really fathered. You don't know how to do things. One of the issues that and now this is not necessarily fathering, but it's something that I think I would have learned if my father would have been there, would be the responsibilities and roles in marriage. I wish I would have learned that from my father, because I wouldn't have struggled in my marriage. Because one of the things that one would then struggle with would be, is it okay to do the dishes?
Oh yes, yeah.
Is it okay for me to do the washing? Or is that strictly for my wife? And one would easily conclude that because you grew up where there was no father in the house, and because the father was not in the house, then you would always see your mom doing that. The dishes are always done by your mom. The washing is always done by your mom. So we haven't really had a great example of fathering. And not necessarily because our fathers didn't want to be there, but because they couldn't be there. They had to be somewhere and work. Yeah.
It's interesting because I ask you about how is fathering going, and I use the word fathering because I want people to realize that being a father and fathering are two different things, right? Being fathering is the process, if I may put it that way, right? And so you've moved from there and you've related that to you being fathered, and how that gets transferred from what you're exposed to where you are now. But you also brought in being a husband. How then do I love my wife? How do I treat my wife? How do I relate with my wife?
If I've never seen my father.
If you've never seen your father doing that to your mother. And I think this is because it's interesting that you're talking about that. We had a friend of mine who here, and we had a conversation called, we named it fatherlessness. I don't know if you watched it.
No.
You didn't watch it, okay. So it's interesting that you bring that across as well. And I think it's a good thing because this is one thing that is such a problem in our lives, right? In our communities as well. Where we start to realize the importance of a father and fathering. And though when you're bringing something that's important, because it's easy for us to blame our fathers and say they were not there. But you last time when we were talking with him, the father was not there, was not present. Right? At one point he was there, but was not present either, in terms of supporting.
Yes.
Now you're talking about a father who who, not that he was absent because of his doing. And I'm not sure if I'm even using the right word when I say absent. Right? But Guti, other fathers are not there just not because they wanted not to be there.
Yes.
It's circumstances
Yes.
that, and in our generation, the generation that we grew up in, that was a norm.
Yes.
So would you say that your father was absent in terms of fathering?
Yeah.
Or was he present when he was?
I would say he wasn't present.
Okay.
And I would say that specifically because a lot of things that I learned, I didn't learn them from my father. I played soccer. It wasn't because of my father. He hasn't influenced me in any way whatsoever to play soccer. At some stage in my life, I became a hip hopper. He wasn't there. He didn't influence me in that sense. So I would say that he wasn't present in that sense. That he didn't really influence my choices. All the things basically that I have done them because I learned them somewhere else, not from my father. So he was absent in that sense. He was present in the sense that he was a provider, and we knew that whenever there's a need in the house, our father will take care of it. So he was present in that sense.
In that sense,
but
yes.
in terms of actively fathering, no.
Sure. And I think, sure. And you know, to our listeners, and I hope this message is going across, for people to realize that being a father is not easy.
Yeah.
Right? And with our generation, that we most of us were not given, like my wife would say, a baton.
Yes.
To carry it through.
Yeah.
You know? And I just want to, maybe if you allow me, do the comparison, right? Where I had a father, and I think my father was present, but in being present, at one point when I grew up, my dad was a heavy drinker, right? Was a heavy drinker. So one of the other things that would happen is, like I always say, and my wife knows this, I've said it so many times, that it was such a situation whereby I never enjoyed Fridays. So you know, when you went to school and children would knock off on Friday,
And they want to go home.
they want to go home. I didn't want to go home because I knew that my dad is going to be tipsy. And if he's tipsy, there's noise, there's this, and you know. But I spent a lot of time with him, even in that environment. So you are talking about basically what is it that he influenced you in. Now, this is my story. Growing up, I used to look at my dad. My dad used to, and this is exactly how it was. He used to drink when I became aware. He used to drink Castle.
Yeah.
That's a brand. That's a brand that he used to drink, right? And growing up, I thought, you know what, when I grow up, I'm going to drink this brand of alcohol. And then at one point, then he changed it to another brand, right? And I kept track of that. I kept track of what my father was changing to. I can tell you even now what he drank and how this went. Even smoking. I knew at one point I was like, when I grow up, I'm going to smoke this. And every time he changed it, and I remember I used to ask him, why are you not smoking that thing anymore?
Yeah.
And he would tell me why he doesn't smoke that thing anymore. And I kept track of that thing. Because when I grow up, because for me, a man drank.
Yeah.
Right? My dad used to fix cars, so he always had a car.
Yeah.
Right? So growing up, I was like, you know, when I grow up, I'm gonna have my car.
Yeah.
And so the chances are that's the direction I was gonna follow. Right? That's exactly the direction I know that's what I was gonna do. Right? Obviously the thing changed when I started realizing these things are actually not healthy, you know. Like I said, I hated Fridays.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I don't want to. But I had to work to change from the ideology that I grew up with to say, I don't want this to show. I don't want to drink and stuff. And, you know, by God's grace, you know, he stopped drinking and stuff. And when he passed away, we called him Umfundisi and stuff. But those things, and I think men need to realize that if you're not there from the beginning, there's a lot that you lose.
Yes.
You lose out
That's
on.
true. That's true.
But the thing is, the fact that you're a father, you are impacting, is that the word? Impacting people around you. You're impacting the people, the children that you have.
Yes.
By your being there or not being there, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we need to realize that we are impacting this generation that looks at us and say we are fathers.
Sure.
So it's interesting that your story, you say, when it came to provision, I knew,
Yeah.
put this and this and this and this will be covered.
Yeah.
Right? And we knew a man is the one who's supposed to provide.
Yes.
How did he provide? It's another story, we don't
Yes.
know how. What was even provision at the time? And we'll talk about these things, right?
Yes.
Because somebody says, my father was a provider. And your father was providing Nihlala Imakaya. And all that he needed to send home was an amount that he would send home. And now I'm a father, I must provide.
Yes.
But I must pay the rent, I must pay
Yes.
this and this and this.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that. So in your case now, I want to bring it back to you. Now, how have you managed to father your children with that kind of a background?
In my case, I think it's been two things. Having moved out of my environment where I used to stay, where I grew up, allowed me, and I got exposed to other ways of doing things. Saw people, got to know other people, got to see how they raise their kids. I think that had an influence in how I'm doing things now. And then secondly, which is most important for me, was me becoming a Christian.
Okay.
Me giving my life to Christ. That really shaped the way I looked at things.
How so?
You obviously with you becoming a Christian, it deals with the person you are. It deals with your character. And so I think that if I were not a Christian, then I wouldn't be having the kind of heart that I have. One of the things that I'm very much aware of is the fact that I'm very careful what I say. And it's not a concept that I got from people that I used to hang out with. It's something that I learned in church. Knowing that I cannot just call my kids names, because if I do that, I'm not just affecting how they feel, but I'm also having an impact, by saying that, having an impact in their future. So I'm aware that how I speak is having consequences and serious consequences. And those are the things that I learned in church. So I would say becoming a Christian has helped me to become the kind of a father that I am. It really had an impact in there. And then seeing people, because again, being in church exposed me to allowed me to see different people. And that allowed me to see different ways of doing things. It is not just the way I grew up, but there are other ways that I can raise kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That's interesting. You're talking to the principle that says it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that in church we have communities.
Yes.
It becomes a community. It becomes a family organization, if I may put it right, driven by family values.
Yes.
So you raise very, very important issue to say your Christianity played a very big part of that. And one of it is what do you say? Right? What do you say to your children?
Yeah.
And you said the names that you gave them as well.
No, I was talking about, you know what normally happens when we get angry, then we will start calling our kids names, calling them useless, calling them stupid and all those things. So I'm very much aware of the impact that has on our kids. And that is something that I learned in the church. I don't think that if I were not in the church, I would have known that.
Sure, sure.
I've heard, and I continue to hear a lot of our peers who are, and I don't just want to say those who are out of church, because there are those who are out of church who are aware of that. But I don't think that I would have learned this if I were not in church.
In your case, okay.
In my case.
Yes.
But to this day, I still hear people who do call kids names. They would call you by something that they hate about you. For example,
sure.
They will call you Manso because you're dark.
And this is your parent?
These are the parents, Or they will call you Damati because you're light. But now there's always this thing that make you hate something about you because they keep on pointing to that thing.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm aware of what it does to kids. But that is a truth that I learned in the church. I learned the concept of blessings and curses in the church. And got to understand what role we play as parents in relation to that, in relation to blessing and in relation to cursing. You see lots of examples. One that comes to mind would be when Jacob brings his sons and he starts speaking a blessing over their lives. And so those are the concepts that I learned in the church. To understand that things that I say, I should never take them lightly, because these things create a certain kind of future for my kids, especially as a parent.
And the funny thing is, I always say this, I remember certain things that were said when I was a child. I remember conversations that other family members at the time would say about my father, because he was drinking, he was a heavy drinker. And they would say certain things, though I was a child, and in our culture, you know, I'm done again, you know, and I remember those kind of things. And it's funny how I hated that, but now that I'm a father, I'm doing exactly the same thing, you know. And I think these, like, I agree with you, we need to be aware of these things. And I'm actually thinking about even what you just said now, and it's so true, I've seen it. For a parent to call Nwana Manso, and this child comes from that parent. So this child is not Manso all by herself. You are the reason why she is that, you know. But sure. So you saying the church played a very important part in how you brought your children, you bring your children up. Were you called names?
I was called, even my nickname.
Oh, okay.
Okay. People know me as Langi.
Langi.
Yeah.
I've never known that one.
Yeah.
But the truth is coming out. Oh, Langi.
Yeah, that's what I was called growing up.
Okay.
And I was called that because apparently when I was still very, very small, they thought I was gonna be blind.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason they thought that I was gonna be blind. And there was a guy called Babsim Lange,
Yes.
and he was blind.
Yes.
That's where my name
Langi.
comes from.
From Langi.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, people called me what they thought I was going to become. They thought I was going to be blind. And so they were certifying that. They were endorsing that by calling me Mlange. So,
Sure.
yeah, you, those are the things that I believe as parents we need to be aware of. That you do, that you're creating future
Sure.
for your
Sure.
child. Yeah.
Sure. Wow. We just and guys, again, this is just a conversation, and for me, I love it when it's like this, right? People won't even realize that we just said, and I said, let's talk.
Yes.
And we came up with this thing.
Yeah.
And that's how we usually talk. And this idea, again, behind the relating relationship is conversations that I've had with friends that have built me.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the conversations that I want to have in front of a camera,
Yes.
where other people can listen in. And those who relate with will relate with.
Yes.
Right? We're not saying everybody's going to relate with what we're
Yes.
talking about. But for those that this can help, I hope this does help.
Yeah.
Right? So you're talking about being called Langi, and this is an interesting thing. People sometimes they don't call you with the name that they want you to become.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of those
Want
people
me to be blind.
wanted to be blind. Right?
Yeah.
And sure, for me, even my children now, right? We don't call people names
Yeah.
in this house.
Yes.
Because I also have that thing where I grew up called kind of cool, you know, big head, you know, and lucky. and that works on you, right? That works on you, right?
It does.
And I remember now, this was a funny thing because they used to call me Kandil Kulu, and then there was one guy they used to call, I think his head was bigger than mine. But we love him. So he was called Kanda, you know, his name was Kanda, right? And then there's another guy as well that, and I'm remembering these people because at one point I felt, okay, my nickname is not as bad, you know? So now, hey, we know English now.
Yeah.
So they used to call him kinda cool, man. Kinda cool, man. Kinda cool, man. But but these things, they stick with us,
they do.
right?
They do.
They create an inferiority complex,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And like I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it, and they also like detail as well, you know,
Yes.
and stuff.
Yes.
But you know, interesting now. You look in the mirror. At one age, you get to some ages where you look in the mirror and it's like, "Fashion."
Yeah.
You know?
That's
But
true.
the same thing that I hate, and I want to get back to this as fathers, right? Parents, but as fathers. I agree with you. We need to be careful of what we call our names,
Yeah.
our children, what names we call them, especially when we're angry.
Yeah.
Right? There's a statement that I read some time back. I think God help me to remember it. It says a child will forgive you for what you did wrong to him, but will never forget.
Sure.
So you say something to a child, he's gonna cry, he's gonna be hurt. 5 minutes later, he's gonna come back and call you daddy.
Yeah.
But that
They
thing
can't
that you
forget.
said, he'll not gonna forget. And later he's gonna deal with that thing that you said. So, yeah, in the house they know we don't. And I always say to people as well, I gave my children names for a purpose. Call them with their names.
Yeah.
Because for me as well, those names that I gave them have a meaning.
Yes.
And it's a meaning
Sure.
of what I want to see
Sure.
happening in their lives.
Yes.
So that's why I didn't subscribe to the thing of naming somebody according to your father's name and all
Yes.
that stuff.
Yes.
I didn't want to
Yeah.
subscribe to that, and And it was because of that, you know. So we've said so much stuff, and I know we knew we can sit here the whole day and talk.
Yeah, the other thing that you mentioned that I actually wanted to maybe emphasize, you didn't say it that way, but in you telling your story of how you were raised, with your father being a heavy drinker and him being a smoker, I had exactly the same. My father was a heavy drinker and also a smoker. Fortunately, in my case, I knew I didn't want to do any of those things. I knew that. But when you said that, one thing that came to my mind was maybe we shouldn't only even talk about fathering, we should talk about intentional fathering.
Wow.
Because there are things that our children can learn from us without us teaching them. And so we need to be very careful what we do, because some of the things our children will not wait for us to say, do this. They will just do it because we are doing it.
Sure.
So I think maybe what we also need to be looking into would be intentional fathering. That our fathering needs to be intentional.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Wow. You saying what you're saying now. I've got a friend of mine. There's a guy who's sitting behind the camera, and every time I talk to him, he'll be like, "No, I'm intentional. You know, I'm teaching this boy finances and stuff, and I'm intentional." You know, and I agree with you.
Yes.
We really need to be intentional.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I want to say, with this conversation is to all the fathers there. We might not be doing things right, and we might sometimes not know what we need to do, you know. And I want to say to all the fathers that are out there, even those who are not present, you know, I just want to encourage you guys to say, you know what, there is still hope. You can still go back and try again. We understand, you know, we understand that sometimes it's not because of what you wanted to do, how you wanted things to happen, but things have happened. Like my wife was talking about background check, that your background, you don't choose it. You never choose which family you're born into and stuff. But there's another one that I've read that they say, if you're blaming your background at the age of 30, then you are the background.
Yes.
Right? So we need to change. We need to start from where we are.
Yeah.
You know? And the intentional fathering part is so important. But I think more important is knowing that your children will learn from you, even though you're not intentional.
Yes.
I remember this other guy said to me, he called me to the side and he told me how much he appreciates me, he sees leadership skills and whatever. And he said something I never forgot. He says, there's never, ever, ever think you're not making a difference.
Wow.
He said, you're always making a difference. Never, ever think there's no one watching.
Yes.
There's always somebody watching. And then he said something, he said, now you decide what are they learning from what they are watching. And what difference are you making in those lives?
Wow.
So that never left me. But people are really watching.
Yes.
Oliver, me and you, we still got to have a conversation. This is going to carry on. Guys, I would like us to stop it here, but I hope you guys have learned something, and Oliver is going to be here. We're going to have more conversations about this, because this conversation for me has opened a whole lot of other conversation. Now, one thing I want to ask you, what is that one thing that you want your children to remember you as, in terms of a father? What kind of father do you want your children to remember you?
A few days ago, I was thinking about, it wasn't about fathering.
Okay.
So there are a few programs that I've been watching on YouTube or on TV, where once in a while you will hear them asking a question, what kind of a man are you looking for? What kind of a wife are you looking for? And I came to this conclusion after listening to few people that generally when we say this is what we're looking for, it comes from what we missed.
Okay, say that again.
When I say you're asking me what kind of a wife or woman
Yes.
you're looking for,
Yes.
and I say to you, what I want is a respectful or a humble woman. Generally, it just says the one I had just before this one was not there.
Yes, yeah.
So,
yeah.
I realize that most of the times what we do,
It's another topic again.
yeah, it's not
Yes.
necessarily like that is what I'm looking for, but I realized in the previous relationship that I didn't have that. And I'm going to do exactly the same. Having said that, I'm going to do exactly the same in answering that question.
Oh, okay.
To say, what I want my kids to know me as will be as a person who was there, a father who was really, really there for them.
Okay.
That's one thing that I want. I want to provide, I want to protect and all those things, but one thing that I want to be remembered for, by my children especially, is that this guy was there.
Sure. Can I share you mine?
Yes, please.
Mine is, I've got 2 boys, right? If I were to die and they knew that the father loved them, for me that would be it.
Sure.
I want them to know that man loved us.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, and then I've got another question for you. What is the one thing that you would like to transfer?
To my children.
Yeah, as a father.
If I could transfer my character, I really love the kind of person. Honestly, I know that sounds like someone who's...
There's a condition for that, isn't it?
I know it sounds like someone who's arrogant or someone who's proud,
yes.
but I really love the person I have become, honestly.
The person you have become.
That I have become.
Sure.
So if there is one thing that I could transfer to my kids, it would be my character.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
In your case, wow.
Wow. I asked the question that I was not ready to ask. Actually. I think for me, it's just to be kind to you. Just love people. Just be kind.
Yeah.
You know, just see each person as a human being.
Yeah.
Give everybody an opportunity to prove themselves and stuff.
We're talking about the same thing then. That's what I call my character.
Yes,
I'm looking at those things.
But I think that's why we get along though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, so we're talking about the
Sure.
same thing.
Okay. I think I'll ask you this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. This is the last one. Were you fathered?
No, not actively.
You were not fathered?
Not actively.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are fathering though?
I am.
You are fathering?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Sure, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Oliver. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Guys, you know what? This camera, I promise, the camera is going to switch off. And this conversation is going to go on, I promise you. The cameraman is probably going to come and join us. But Oliver, thank you so much.
No,
thank you so much, man. It's been... I've been looking for this day, forward for this day, and we're going to have many more.
Yes.
We're going to have many more. Let's say goodbye to our viewers. Guys, thank you so much for joining us once more. This is a relating relationship with Desmond. There's no way I was going to forget saying that. But anyway, thank you so much with Oliver, my brother. Guys, see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.